Welcome back, scholars, to our Digital Academy. I am Professor Spark. Whether we are turning the pages of a timeless novel, our mission remains the same. Will today's sweep us into the concert hall? Let's find out together.
All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, heavily debated, and honestly incredibly influential piece of literature, Ayn Rand's 1943 novel, The Fountainhead. We're going to break down the complex plot, the heavily symbolic characters, and the core philosophy driving the whole shebang. So we're actually going to start in media res, right at the novel's jaw-dropping climax. Picture this. You've got an uncompromising, visionary architect named Howard Roark, and he literally plants explosives to dynamite his own public housing project, Cortlandt Homes. Why on earth would he do that? Well, because the building was altered without his consent. He designed it anonymously with one strict rule. It had to be built exactly to his blueprints. When they broke that deal, he chose total destruction over compromise. It's an intense moment, and it begs a pretty huge question. Section 1. The Exploding Building. Reverse Engineering a Philosophical Argument. Section 2. Creators versus Second-Handers. The Architectural Metaphor. Rand uses architecture as her main metaphor here for a very specific reason. Think about it. A building's physical reality is a highly visible, tangible expression of an idea. You simply can't fake structural integrity the way you might, say, fudge the abstract meaning of a painting. A building either stands up or it falls down. In this world, architectural style directly reflects a person's morality. True integrity means designing something true to its function and its materials. This perfectly maps onto our protagonist, Howard Roark. Just as his buildings are totally true to themselves, a person's life has to be true to their own judgment. On the flip side, we have mediocrity, represented by pastiches, slapping ancient Greek columns onto a modern skyscraper. That represents thought that just copies rather than creates, and that is perfectly personified by the character Peter Keating. Let's put these two side by side. Roark was literally expelled from the Stanton Institute of Technology because he flat out refused to follow classical conventions. He struggles for commissions, he won't compromise his modernist vision an inch, and he apprentices under Henry Cameron, a visionary architect who was basically broken by a world that rejected his designs. Now contrast that with his old classmate, Peter Keating. Keating takes the exact opposite route. He becomes the industry's golden boy by flattering clients, stealing credit, and churning out these crowd-pleasing derivative designs. But internally, the guy secretly despises himself. This rivalry perfectly sets up Rand's core concept of the second-hander. A creator, like Roark, generates value from their own primary thought. But a second-hander, like Keating, they live entirely through the opinions of others. They don't originate anything, they just reflect what the crowd wants to see. Section 3. The Architect's Obstacles. Threats to Individualism. Roark isn't just dealing with a tough job market. He's up against full-blown ideological enemies. First up is Ellsworth Toohey. He's an architecture critic and a socialist ideologue, and he works quietly behind the scenes to destroy individual greatness. He promotes mediocrity because, well, a public trained to worship the collective is way easier to control. Rand is basically arguing that Toohey's altruism is actually just egotistical control. Then we have Dominique Franchon. She's brilliant, she's beautiful, but she's deeply disillusioned. She falls head over heels for Roark, but get this, she actively sabotages his career. Why? Because she thinks the world literally isn't worthy of his greatness, and loving him openly would just let the world destroy him faster. Dominique's character arc is fascinating. She starts off in this state of destructive despair, actively trying to ruin Roark. She even goes as far as marrying Gail Winand. Winand is a self-made newspaper tycoon who actually sold out his own ideals to build his empire. And he sees in Roark the exact integrity he threw away for power. Eventually, though, Dominique reaches a point of acceptance. She realizes Roark's integrity is completely unbreakable. Her journey really mirrors the novel's main argument. Uncompromising individuals do win in the end, even if it takes a while. Section 4. Objectivism in Embryo, the Philosophical Core. So, we loop back to Roark being on trial for blowing up Cortlandt Homes. But instead of begging for mercy or apologizing, he delivers this massive, passionate defense of individualism, creative integrity, and the fundamental rights of the individual against the demands of the collective. And believe it or not, it works. He gets acquitted. This trial scene is
absolutely crucial. It's Rand's first full articulation of what she'd later call objectivism. We're talking about the philosophy of rational self-interest, the total primacy of the individual mind, and the complete rejection of altruism as a moral ideal. Now, a quick clarification here. When Rand says Rourke is selfish, she doesn't mean he's petty or greedy. She means he answers strictly to his own internal standards of truth and excellence. He literally doesn't care about public approval.
The fallout from the trial leads to our ultimate resolution. The media tycoon Ayn Rand is actually forced by public pressure to turn his own paper against Rourke. But in a massive twist, Ayn Rand ends up commissioning Rourke to design the Winan building anyway. This skyscraper becomes the novel's final, towering symbol of Rourke's complete and uncompromising victory over the collective.
Section 5. A Polarizing Legacy, Criticisms and Enduring Influence.
Now, as an impartial explainer, we have to look at how polarizing this 700-page book has been since 1943. From a literary standpoint, there are some major critiques. Critics often point out that the characters act more like ideological mouthpieces than real human beings, with Toohey often called cartoonishly villainous. People also argue the morality is incredibly reductive and black and white, completely ignoring that in the real world, creative work is almost always highly collaborative. And we definitely have to mention that the infamous romantic scenes between Rourke and Dominique have drawn sustained, serious criticism over how they handle the issue of consent. Politically, the divide is just as stark. On one side, the novel is fiercely embraced by libertarians and free market advocates. They see it as a massive champion of individual rights. But on the exact opposite side, it is heavily criticized by the political left, who view the philosophy as a moral justification for social Darwinism and a dangerous disregard for community welfare. The book literally fractures its audience right down ideological lines. Yet, despite the mixed literary reviews and the intense political battles, The Fountainhead remains incredibly influential. It's a huge cultural touchstone, especially in business and entrepreneurial circles. The whole idea of celebrating an uncompromising vision against institutional conformity, that continues to resonate powerfully, stretching way past architecture and right into the modern boardroom. So, looking at this massive legacy, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Considering the core tension of Ayn Rand's philosophy, in our modern world, where exactly do we draw the line between having an uncompromising individual vision and the practical, often necessary, reality of community collaboration? It's the central question the novel forces us to confront, and it's definitely one worth thinking about.